Hey, Chef Ro here. Today I'm going to teach you how to make hollandaise, one of the mother sauces and by most counts, most difficult of all of them to make. Now I'm going to make a little bit of a cheating hollandaise. I'm not going to do a couple of the steps, but this is still going to taste better than some of the other cheating methods of doing it all in one pan, or sometimes the blender hollandaise, you can't get quite as much butter in there, so in my opinion it doesn't taste quite as good. But the one step that I'm skipping that a true hollandaise has is that you will take champagne vinegar or white wine vinegar and shallots and peppercorns, and you reduce it until it's almost completely dry in a small pan. Then you strain that out and you use that vinegar instead of the lemon juice that I'm going to use in the beginning of this. You use both in a true traditional hollandaise. I hate doing dishes. That's just another dish, a couple other ingredients, an extra step. It does taste a lot better, I won't lie, but this one tastes pretty close. Now I'm going to use whole butter. Most people do say that you have to use clarified butter. That's a whole process, but I think that the whole butter helps actually emulsify it a little bit better. You can see, if you look closely, you can see that there is this golden part on top of my melted butter and there's the white stuff at the bottom. The white stuff is the milk solids. That's the part that burns in the pan. So if you remove just that top white part, then you will actually have a higher temperature oil to cook with. So you can cook with the flavor of butter without it burning. It's clarified butter. And that is what most traditionally hollandaise is used for, or does use. But you can just melt some whole butter and it will be just fine, I promise. First things first, you're going to need a double boiler. Now, you don't need to go out and buy a special piece of equipment called a double boiler. If you have one, that's great. If you don't, stainless steel bowl set on top of a pot of simmering water, you're golden. This isn't like chocolate. It doesn't matter. The heat can stay on, but you still don't want the bottom of the bowl to touch the water, so you just have to make sure that it sits high enough up that the water doesn't actually touch the bottom of the bowl. You're wanting to cook by steam so that your eggs don't scramble. In my bowl here, I have 2 egg yolks, about 1.5 teaspoons of cold water, and now I'm just going to put just a smidge of lemon juice here. Okay? You want to put that lemon juice in at the very last second so that it doesn't start coagulating the proteins too quickly. Once you are on the flame, you've got to whisk constantly, and this is where culinary school teachers torture the daylights out of the new students, and I won't lie, I've done it myself. You've got to whisk constantly. You can see I'm almost starting to scramble here, so you've got to get it off that heat if you think that you are going to scramble. I've got my heat a little too high. In fact, I'm just going to turn it off for this last tiny little bit that needs to happen. Okay, you can see, do you see how it's starting to look like pudding? That's what you're looking for. Once it looks like pudding, you get to move on to the next step. Once it looks like pudding, you've got to pull it off the heat. And do you see how it's holding the whisk trails? So you can see where the whisk has been with the trails. So now we're going to pull it off, and we're going to put just a smidge of lemon juice in again, just to stop the cooking. Okay, you can see I thinned it right back down a little bit. Now here's where it's handy to have like a silicone trivet, or you can use a slightly damp towel, or you can use another person, especially if you've got a kid. They like to help. Okay, what you're going to do is you're going to put this here, and because you need it to stay still. Okay, you're going to need your other hand to pour. Okay, so you're going to just drizzle this in very slowly, and if you notice, I'm whisking back and forth, and you're going to just drizzle very, very slow. Okay, if you see that the butter isn't incorporated, you need to stop. Wait till it's incorporated before you keep going, or else you're going to have what's called a broken sauce, and it's going to look like it's got little oil droplets everywhere. If that happens, don't be concerned. Get yourself another egg yolk and a little bit of water, a little bit of lemon juice. Cook it to the pudding stage, and then use the broken sauce as your butter, and you will need a little additional butter, and you're just going to have a lot of hollandaise. Now, the sad thing about hollandaise is that it doesn't hold particularly well. Okay, so the problem is that you can only make it right before you want to serve it. Or what I know some people have done is a thermos, like the kind that you used to take to school. Those things work brilliantly at holding hollandaise at the correct temperature, because if it does get too cold, the butter will seize back up, because butter gets hard when it gets cold. If that happens, you can set your double boiler up a little bit, but you got to be very careful and start to take it off before it's fully melted, because it will continue to melt even after you take it off the heat, and otherwise you will break your sauce. Okay, now if you notice, my arm's about ready to fall off. Whew. Okay, but I have a beautiful hollandaise, and I've got almost all my butter in. Okay, and you have to go small, very slow, all the way to the end, because I've had a hollandaise where I was this far and I dumped too fast at the last bit, broke the whole sauce, had to start over again. Okay. Almost there. You get the last little bit. Okay. And here is my hollandaise sauce. Now you're going to season this with a little bit more lemon juice, a little salt and pepper, and serve it immediately. Now you know how to make hollandaise sauce. Put it on everything. Eggs Benedict, omelets, hash. I put it on a spoon in my mouth. Who cares? It's delicious. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do.